Let's be honest. How many times have you been tempted by a quick fix diet? The ones that promise you'll drop 10 pounds in 10 days and suddenly it's all figured out. It sounds magical, right? But you're here and you probably know how that story ends. I've been there too. You try the thing, follow the rules, and it works for a second. Then life happens, the plan falls apart, and you're back on square one, wondering if it's you or the diet. Today, we're going to be diving into why these quick fix diets fail you, not the other way around, and what you need to do to finally escape the cycle. So, Alex, why do we end up failing for all of these quick fix diets?
Well, the only time that you're going to be looking for a quick fix diet is when you're in a pretty emotional space, wanting to lose body fat as fast as possible. And so if you are online looking for these things and they guarantee that they're going to get you the response that you're looking for, you've got a vacation coming up that you've wanted to lose weight for, but it is now in crunch time and you only have got 10 days and all of a sudden you see something that's going to say you can lose 10 pounds in 10 days, you're going to jump for that thing. And so it capitalizes on emotion, it capitalizes on scarcity, it capitalizes on your emotions of just being in a vulnerable position.
Yeah, and it makes you feel, it makes you want to believe that there's some shortcut or some hack or some magic solution to all of your problems that you likely got yourself into.
Well, yeah, the thing that they really speak to is this thing that's been missing for you this whole time. And you've tried everything. And this is the one thing that you haven't tried yet. And if you do it, all things are going to be unlocked. And so it is selling this fairy tale that may work in the instant moment, but what's the longevity of it? What's the repercussions of going those extreme measures to get that 10 pounds off in 10 days, for example?
Yeah, because it's not just about losing the weight. It's about the control of that quick fixes prey on of being able to have certainty and being in a place that you are going to have the outcome that you're wanting in that time frame. And so it feels very certain. And again, like a shortcut to a certain degree of, I just need to do this one thing. That's the missing piece. I'm going to have all my dreams come true. I'm sure you have plenty of stories like this, but can you think of one of a client that has come to you from doing multiple quick fixes and then finally just found out that they don't really work?
I would say we have more people come to us from challenges. And I think challenges can serve a purpose, but doing the challenges in a repetitive manner of not actually learning any of the things that are being implemented within nutrition or resistance training or cardio, just simply being fed, do this, this, and this, and that is how you're going to, get the result that you want. Again, a tool, but not going to be something that's sustainable for the long term. Because if you continue to follow that exact same diet, you continue to follow the same exact cardio and the training, there's going to be diminishing returns, but also you're likely to veer off of the protocol itself. You're not just going to be 100% on the exact same thing after that 8-week transformation challenge or whatever. Mm-hmm. So we see that probably the most. We would often see as people are trying to, in a time of being more of a novice within their knowledge to nutrition, they would fall into the different fad diets that are promising different outcomes and those things. Nothing direct comes to mind. Probably the thing that comes to mind the most right now would be like the carnivore diet or keto or cutting out specific food groups or macronutrients to elicit a specific response that people have seen others online have success with, or decreasing inflammation being this like really strong buzzword that everyone wants to avoid. Mm-hmm. And so wanting to try the carnivore diet or ketogenic diet, and generally they're going to see pretty immediate response in terms of weight loss because of fluid retention that's being lost, as well as the glycogen being depleted from the muscle bellies and so on. But then obviously at that point, there's a point where that stops, and then we're going to have to see the calorie deficit take over. And then people still struggle the way that they were when they were in a calorie deficit, because it's generally going to be adherence, or there could be some underlying issues that need to be addressed, but that's going to be more specific and nuanced than what we're speaking about today.
Yeah. And I have been hearing a lot when I'm having onboarding calls with clients of just that. I've asked, like, what have you done in the past that you've seen results, or what have you done in the past to try and see results? And they'll talk about, well, I did this and it worked. And I always like to ask of, like, did you gain the weight back, or did you have to do it again? And they're like, well, yeah, I gained the weight back, but it worked, so I'm going to go back to it. And that's the thing that I like to define, is what is success for you in that? Because success to me is losing the weight and keeping it off, not having to regain the same 10, 15, 20 pounds. And then just you're in this vicious cycle of, I gain the 20 pounds, I lose the 20 pounds, I gain the 20 pounds, I lose the 20 pounds. And I will also go ahead and put like a little fun fact / spoiler alert. Once you gain fat cells, you never lose them. They shrink and they're still on your body. And so gaining and losing that same weight can be really, really hard on your body too. Not only mentally, like it's very difficult mentally, but physically on your body, and how it can change how you look is a big part. And so I feel like the overall problem here is that these diets aren't designed to last. They are in a place that they are really preying again on that instant gratification, and they teach you how to follow rules instead of teaching you how to live, because life inevitably is going to happen. And I really like to talk about that with clients, is we can't live in this vacuum of like, okay, you can technically for maybe 3 or 6 months, and I shut out everything else and I only follow this. But what happens when, let's say, you're craving a sandwich and you're on keto, or you want to go have fun with your friends, or you want to have a drink, or whatever it may be? Life happens. And so we need to be able to figure out how to live and how to really sustain the results over the long term.
Sure. And I think the focus that we want to encourage over, this podcast is really focusing on nutritional knowledge and being able to make decisions and make this more of a long haul effort to improve habits and just your approach to how you take care of your body, and not getting in this vicious cycle of fad diet after fad diet, trying to lose the same 10, 20, 30 pounds time and time again.
Low reps is best.
High reps is best.
Fruit is so
it's
good.
Terrible for you.
You should lift heavy.
High reps,
carbs
low
are
weight.
needed.
Keto
Squats
for
are bad for your
Squats
knees.
are great.
You
for your
should squat ass
knees
to
over
grass.
toes.
It's fine. It fits my macros.
Is for idiots.
When there are so many mixed messages going around, it's hard to know what you should even do or focus on. But that's exactly where physique development one-on-one coaching comes in. You might have heard of online coaching or even hired a coach before, but we believe in teaching you the why behind what we do, while truly taking your life into consideration. We want to train, educate, and empower you to reach your goals and help you to stop spinning your wheels and just finally feel good. And hey, we're here to help you look good too. You need you. Your health is your wealth. So join Physique Development and let us be the last coach you ever need. So what are some of the reasons that you would say that these diets fail overall?
Well, I would say that any of the, thinking of the carnivore diet, the keto diet, you could even put intermittent fasting in there. You could also put in like a vegan diet, which veganism is not going to be a fad diet necessarily, but the person who is going vegan for the sheer fact of thinking that they're going to lose weight, that's going to be something that we likely should avoid. And all of these are going to be removing specific food groups or getting very aggressive within the calorie decrease from what the person was eating prior. And so all of them are going to be very challenging and generally a large overhaul into what you're currently doing within your life. And when we make drastic changes, yes, the motivation is going to carry us for a period of time, but there is going to be a point where that motivation is no longer there. And the success for the people who are making drastic changes after that motivation is gone is zero.
Yeah.
Those people do not exist because it ends up being something where they're just like, well, I tried it. It worked for a little bit and I had to get back to normalcy because it was not sustainable. And you would think that as soon as that response happens for them, that they would be like, a light bulb would go off. I need to try something different. But unfortunately, many of those same people will try just a different version of what just was temporarily successful, but not sustainable. And they'll try it again and again and continue to be frustrated and even more frustrated with the same 20 to 30 pounds to lose.
Yeah. And I think it really just stems from being restrictive overall. It's something that restrictive rules end up setting you up to fail by putting you in a place where you are just following rules instead of understanding how to navigate different situations and how to live your life. And so it puts you in a place of, oh, I'm only going to eat 1,200 calories and now this is my new goal, or now I'm cutting out this entire food group. And restriction overall, what we've seen time and time again, leads to the yo-yo dieting of the losing the weight, having the weight back on, losing the weight, having the weight back on. But it can also lend to like binging of this undereating to overeating, undereating to overeating. And that again takes a toll on us mentally as well as physically on our bodies. Because you and I talk a lot about consistency, and that goes from a day-to-day basis too. So if you're in a place where you're like, well, on average, I ate this much calories. Let's go ahead and say that one day you had 5,000 calories, the next day you had 1,000 calories. And you're like, well, on average, I was having about 3,000 calories a day. But every once in a while that can happen because that's life of being able to work out the averages and make it work for the week. But more than anything, your body is going to respond to consistency overall. And so if you can consistently get in those inputs, you are also going to have better outputs and clearer outputs than this place where you're having these varied inputs. You're not going to have those outputs. And that's also why when you get on the scale, when you are going through this, it's an emotional roller coaster. Because you step on one day, you're happy because the scale is down. You step on the next day because, again, there was not the same inputs or you slept horribly, whatever it may be, and then the scale is up. So now I'm sad. Now I need to bring food back down instead of looking at the data as a whole and being able to have consistent inputs as you go along what you're doing.
Another thing would be not being specific to the person. One of the things that is so incredible with our one-on-one service is that we're able to tailor every detail to the person within their training, within their nutrition, within their schedule. What are we needing to navigate through to get to the goal that you are desiring? You know, what has hindered you up until this point, and how can we work through those things and have conversation so that you better understand how to work with yourself, not against yourself. And so that is why we're able to get such incredible results with our one-on-one clients, because it is so specific. Where these fad diets fail well, they fail in multiple categories, but in this specific realm is that they have to speak in generalizations because they're trying to get as many people to do the thing. Thus, we need to make it as broad stroke as possible. And so there are going to be people that fall into the broad stroke of, okay, this is successful for this person. But there are a lot of people who are going to fall outside of that broad stroke that are like, this isn't working for me, or I'm having an issue because of this, I'm having a nutrient deficiency because of this, and so on and so forth. It's very difficult because it's not taking into consideration of where you're at. And you need to be able to build up from where you currently are, not being like, this is where I'm currently at and I want to be here, so I'm just going to jump. Because again, the jump may work for a little bit, but it's going to backfire and you're likely to put yourself further back than you were before.
I am going to take a second, and that just reminded me, honestly, of a quote that I just highlighted in one of my books about that. So, un momento. Okay, this quote is, what you want to be doesn't change what you are without work. And it was talking about how they were like, oh no, I want to be this way. And the professor was just like, you can't want it and not take any action and do any work to get where you want. And so there's a lot of things in life that can feel unfair of like, well, I really want it to work or I want it to be okay. But it's like, you're going to have to put work in to be able to make that happen. And I love that you brought that up within our clients. And I think it's worth noting of like clients in so many different backgrounds with so many different things going on. And again, I was on another onboarding call yesterday, and the girl is someone who has 2 jobs and is also still taking classes in college. And we were really talking through exactly where it's not just, I'm going to tell you what your macros are. So now you have certainty on what your macros should be, but like we break break down what your schedule is, what those barriers are that you're facing. What is the reason you have failed in the past, and how can we sidestep that, or again, take away a barrier to make that path clearer, where otherwise you are just following a set of rules, and that can be really hard to fit into a lifestyle.
Yeah. The being able to really customize the specific things for the people is where the success and longevity of all this really comes into play. Another thing that the fad diets run into issues with, and this is going back to the emotional pull of things, is going to be the obsession to the scale. Because how much easier can it be from a marketing perspective than to tell someone they can lose 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds doing X thing? And when somebody is constantly obsessing already about the scale, and it's like, okay, well, if you're going to remove this thing that's constantly looming in my head that I feel embarrassed about, I am self-deprecating because of this. If you're going to fix this for me, I'm all in for what you're selling me. And so that would be something where they're, creating more issues or inflaming an issue that's already present by making it even more focused on the scale, to have progress, and that being the only metric that it's really following.
But the scale lies. Like, it doesn't show what your strength is, what your energy is, how your sleep is, or how your clothes fit. And so it really is just one metric overall. And it's so interesting because I know how many people are really drawn into the scale number, but the amount of people on calls that tell me, well, if I could look this way and I don't care what the scale says, like I could be this weight, but if I look this way, I don't care, then that's also very interesting to me, of like the two sides of the coin, where you're wrapped up in the scale because that's what you've been told to worry about. But then at the end of the day, you actually don't care what the scale says as long as you look the way that you want to look. For the most part, that is how a majority of people that I talk to truly feel. And it's something where I have a strong belief that having like a goal weight and being way too tied to the scale does just negate and can keep you from reaching your goals, because you get so tied into the number, you don't think about those other variables of how am I feeling? How do I look? How do my clothes fit? How is my sleep? And you get so zoned in on that number. But it's also interesting to me of that most people don't just want to lose weight, they want to lose fat. And that isn't the full story when you are just looking at the scale. Yeah.
And I would say with coaching, one of the greatest benefits from it is that you have someone who is not hyper fixated on one variable, that they're able to see the whole picture within your fat loss journey to give you guidance on what the next best step is. And often when people are handling their nutrition themselves, they're hyperfixated on singular variables. Even for myself, when I am handling my own nutrition, I can get hyperfixated on single things that are irritating me more than others. And having a coach allows for me to back off of that and see, okay, this is not going how I want it to, but I've got other things that I need to address for this thing to get better anyway. And if I would have just been zoomed out, I could see that this was my problem, but because I was so focused, I did not see that this was not in the place that it needed to be. And so by having that second eye and having that accountability, it allows for you to have that second eye of being able to see the whole picture.
Yeah. And I think that flows into another reason that these diets fail is that there's no education. It is just rules. And so with you talking about being able to zoom out and see those variables, a lot of times people don't know what variables to look for because they've just been shown the scale is all that matters. And that's not your fault necessarily. To a certain degree, you do have to take responsibility of like staying ignorant if you haven't searched something out, but you might also just not understand how those variables work together because it's not your job. And so you might not know how do these different variables affect my scale weight or how I feel. And so being able to have true education and explanation about that, instead of someone just saying like, okay, things look good, this is what we're going forward with. It's like someone looking and saying, because this, and this change, that's why we're going to have this output, or that's why we're going to change this thing to now get this result. That now you're also so much more bought in, and you're not in this frantic spot of, okay, I step on the scale in the morning and what's the number? It's like, I look at the number, I take in the data, and now I can use that education and that knowledge to really make the best decision.
Yeah. And I think that leads us into, speaking about what is a better option than these fad diets. And I think the really core of it is trying to playing the long game. And when we're looking at playing the long game, understanding that if you are going to go on this journey yourself, you're going to get on YouTube, you're going to use other internet platforms to educate yourself on nutrition, on training, you're going to run into a lot of, I thought this was right, and I found out later it was wrong. And you're going to keep doing that. And that's a totally fine way of learning, but you are slow. It's probably the slowest way to learn overall. The best way would be to play the long game with guidance and being able to have guidance and a starting point provided for you, and then being able to ask questions along the way to someone who is very well versed in the space, someone that you think is great that you can learn from. That's going to be the best way for you to play the long game and not getting fixated in like, okay, I am eating this way right now. I have this level of knowledge to nutrition. I have this level of knowledge to training, and I am going to lose 20 pounds in the next 90 days, but I don't have the actual base to do that, but I'm going to figure it out. And then you get frustrated because you didn't get to this pretty extreme goal in a small time window on your own. And so by playing the long game, if you're going to go the route of doing it yourself, give yourself a huge time horizon. If you're going to go with someone who has the knowledge and use them as the guide, they're going to be able to provide you with that timeline, and you're going to expedite your results as well as expedite your understanding of the topics significantly more. And so thinking more long-term and understanding that your health, your nutrition, your training, all of these are for your life. It's not just this year or this wedding or this vacation. All of it is you taking care of yourself for the rest of your life. And the things that you could learn today could be implemented for the rest of your life. I don't think that the ROI is so unbelievably positive. It's unfathomable. If you were to try and put it into dollars, I suppose, it would be trillions of dollars because you're likely adding so much time to your life and quality to your life that could not be replicated by simply just taking care of yourself. The long game is key.
Well, I think just the shortcut is the long way.
Sure.
And people think that, oh, if I take this will get me closer, this will get me closer. And I have seen over the past decade, the amount of people who take the shortcuts time and time again end up with the longest road back to where they need to go. Whereas the people who just go in for the long game are the ones that get to where they're going, and they have a much better path getting there. So that is exactly why the shortcut is taking the long way, and recognizing there is no shortcut, and it's just about taking that next step forward, because you're thinking like a fad diet is going to be fading results. And so really switching your head from, okay, I want fast results to I want lasting results. Because once you've agreed or determined I want lasting results, then that's going to change the entire way that you look at diets and dieting overall.
Are you sick and tired of your glutes not growing, turning around in the mirror and seeing a board for a booty? I've been coaching for nearly a decade, helping thousands of women reach their goals. The most common goal: grow my glutes. Women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and even 60s able to grow their glutes with the guidance of my training programs. And for all this time, I've kept my best glute growth secrets only for my one-on-one clients. And that changes today. We just released our 12-week glute growth program in the PD training app. It is a 4-day program with exercise and volume adjustments every 3 weeks. You can easily access the program through our app and track every single workout. Each exercise will have a detailed video teaching you exactly how to perform each and every movement. And guess what? I am no longer gatekeeping. I'm sharing every single one of my best glute growth secrets inside this program because you are awesome and I want you to have this program. I'm going to give you $25 off, making it a fraction of what you spent at Starbucks this past month. Use code POD. The link to purchase will be in the description. Now let's get back to the show.
Which I think we've already touched on, but another big thing to be able to focus on is going to be the right metrics, which we already talked about how the scale is only one metric. So it's not that we're saying throw the scale out, but it is looking at other metrics than just the scale.
Speaking to the metrics, if we're looking at pictures, I would encourage you to look at pictures every other week. You don't have to take pictures every week. Every week would be a good reminder for accountability purposes, but you're not going to see much shift in a 7-day period, but you are likely to see some shift in a 14-day period, provided that you're consistent. And then I would also take body measurements. Within those body measurements, I would record those once every 30 days. Again, are you to see change every other week within measurements? Potentially, but you're more likely to see change on a month-to-month basis if we're in comparison. And so those would be two other markers that would be beneficial for your fat loss journey. Variables that you'd be tracking on a week-to-week basis, you'd be wanting to track how the quality of your digestion, the quality of your energy, the quality of your sleep, the quality of your recovery, the quality of your training performance, the quality of your mood, your menstrual cycle, if you're a female. Any other things come to mind?
You hit on a lot of them, but those are ones that are just going to be such helpful insight, because we can't always control what the scale does. And you might be thinking like, yes, if I eat less, then I can control the scale going in a certain direction. You can to a certain degree, but we technically can't always determine what our gravitational pull towards Earth is going to be. And so you can be doing all of the right things and maybe the scale isn't moving. And then that's putting you in a place where you're like, well, I'm not seeing results. But being able to take into these other things, then you're going to see that full picture to be able to make the right decisions, because it's also the aspect of being able to, like, if you get into, let's say you're like checking in with yourself, you don't have a coach, you step on the scale and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't lose weight again. Now what do I do? If you haven't been tracking any other metric, your only thought is that I need to do more because I'm not losing weight. Whereas if you're tracking these other metrics and you're like, hey, actually the past 2 weeks, my sleep has been dog shit. There's your insight. That's what you need to focus on, because you just lowering food isn't going to change that your sleep is shit. And it's actually going to hurt it, because likely you're having an issue with recovery because you're not sleeping. So lowering your food is just going to make your recovery worse. And then that inflammation that everyone fears has now just really creeped up on you, and you probably feel like shit. And so that's where being able to look at these metrics just gives you so much power and control by understanding what you're looking at, instead of making that emotional decision like we talked about earlier of I just see the number, so the only thing I know what to do within dieting is do more. Either eat less food or do more cardio. Those are the only answers. Where, again, if your sleep's been horrible, if you've been in a place where your digestion is in an awful spot, that's not the answer to just bring food down. And that's where the biggest gap is. And it's because people don't know what to do and they're not tracking variables to then even figure out what to do.
Yes. The other thing would be to focus more on simplicity and building habits relative to being perfect or having this complete overhaul of your life. I think that a really great question that I will ask clients when they're coming in is, do you feel like your habits are in a place to even take on a dieting phase right now? And oftentimes they'll say, what habits would even need to be in place for me to get into a dieting phase? Which I think is a fair question. And the habits that really come to mind for me are going to be like, how are you going about your sleep? How are you managing the hour after you wake? How are you managing the hour before you go to bed? Are you going to bed at a pretty similar time? Are you waking at a pretty similar time on a day-to-day basis? Are you consistent within the timing of your meals, meaning that you're having an actual breakfast, you're having an actual lunch, you're having an actual dinner? Do you have a consistent regimen for your training? Are you hitting a specific amount of steps? Now, this is not me sitting here being like, you're counting every possible calorie. Perfect. You're hitting 20,000 steps every day, something ridiculous. This is just simply, do we have a base habit structure that allows for us to actually lose body fat? Because if we're going from a place of not having the habit structure and just being like, it is my time to lose body fat, and you don't have these things in place, it's going to be an uphill battle. And you're going to be constantly feeling like, man, this is so hard. This is so overwhelming. And it's like, because your foundation was mud, bro. We're trying to go from a place of cement, a hard foundation of real habits that you've worked hard to build, and they are second nature for you to have in place. And if your habits are second nature, it doesn't mean that you have 0 days that you miss, that you're perfect all the time. We're looking at having these habits be strong over 60, 90, 120 days, hitting more than 80% of the time. That would be a strong habit to me. And so if you don't have that, focus on that first. Focus on building that foundation and being strong there before you're like, I am ready to lose body fat. No, you're not. You're just simply not. And when you have those habits, then you'll be ready to lose the body fat.
Yeah. And I think just a sidestep to this, because this is related, but not completely on track to what we're talking about. But if you do have a coach and they are in a place that's saying, hey, we're not ready to diet because we need to do these things, trust them, because they likely know what they're doing, And we have seen time and time again, like you can't see those results without habits and without consistency. And that's the whole thing of like, it's not about perfection, it's about consistency. And the clients that are gung-ho and wanting to be like, I want to lose weight now, it doesn't work if they don't have the habits and they don't have anything consistent in their life. And that's what I always drill home is for you to see the results, because that's the thing. If people don't have that nailed down, they put themselves in a diet, then they can't lose weight. And then they're like, well, things just don't work for me. And I can't lose weight and I have to go to this extreme. And then they're also not seeing the result immediately on the scale. So then they're again in their own head. But it's like, we want to set you up for success. To be able to do that, you need that solid foundation that you're talking about. And then from there, we can build on it. But I don't want to throw someone to the wolves of just like, hey, we're going to enter a diet, even though you have no structure, no routine, no habits, and don't even know how to do half this stuff. That's me setting someone up for failure. And so really think about, are you in a place to diet? Do you have habits nailed down? And if you don't, if you are consistent with just getting habits, I can almost guarantee you are going to see physique changes even without dieting by just nailing down some freaking habits.
Right. And maybe you're asking yourself like, man, I want these habits. I want to get better with these and I struggle. Like, what would be your recommendation for that person who's trying to get the foundation in place, but they've struggled to do so?
I really look at like digging into more of why they've struggled to do so. Is it something within the plan, or is it something within like behavior change and true habit formation? Because we actually just, all of the coaches on PD just went through a certification to be able to help with that true behavior change and habit formation, because we saw that it's not just about what your macros are and what your training is, it's about what truly those habits are and where your mindset is. And so that's something that we now have a certification and training on how to help people that feel like, hey, I've tried this multiple times and I just can't stick with it. And so we have multiple questions to go into that. But one of the first things is really being able to get into their feelings of like, hey, in this exact situation, let's just take one situation. Why did this happen? What do you think you could have done better in this situation? How can we draw awareness around this? And then what steps do we need to take to change it? And I'm always going for progress more than anything. Like, I'm not expecting someone the next time that situation comes up to now have it mastered. I'm expecting to at least be 1% better than you were the last time. And that's all that I ask. I literally have never asked someone for perfection, maybe only myself, but I'm working on it. But it truly is about, did you think about something beforehand? Did you take something else into consideration? Did you show up for yourself in a way that you hadn't before? Because that's worth celebrating, and that is consistency and going to get you there. I tell people so often, if they're like, what does it take to get results? The answer is consistency. And so above all else, we need to figure out how we can have some habits be consistent, even if we don't have all of them, even if we can't be perfect. It's really looking at, all right, if we're struggling with X, Y, and Z, can we at least get X nailed down for a period of time? And what's the easiest way we can go about that, or the simplest way we can go about that? Okay, we have that. Now let's go on to Y. And how can we keep taking those steps forward instead of just sitting here being like, well, just work harder, try harder. You're not disciplined enough, because I've heard that so many times. And oftentimes it's not because someone isn't disciplined enough, and it's not because someone doesn't care enough or want to put in enough effort. It's because the plan doesn't work for them, or they do not know how to execute the plan. And so that's where wires get crossed, and where we like to dig in deeper to figure out what's the true root of the problem here. Instead of slapping a bunch of Band-Aids on bullet wounds, it's like, no, let's actually dig this bullet out and figure out what's going on.
Yes. There are very few decisions that are made in isolation, and more often it is a cascade of events or decisions that are made that lead to specific things. And that is what we're working to always figure out for clients. And when we're able to unlock that in clients' minds of, okay, this happened, and then I made this decision because of this, then they're able to see that and then catch themselves earlier in that whole process. And then that's where we start to see the improvement in habit formation and seeing them have long-term success.
Yeah. And really just think of like, what if instead of starting over every few months, you built a system that worked for you and your goals?
Pretty incredible.
What if?
What if?
That would be incredible. Well, you don't even have to wonder what if, because I know we've talked about it a little bit. We teased it a little bit on the podcast, but as of today, as you're listening, you can go ahead and check the description notes, and you will be able to register for a free webinar that we're putting on all about a fast track to fat loss and how to do it without a fad diet or a quick fix, but it's going to put you on that fast track to be able to see that. So go ahead and hit the link below to register. There are limited spots, so grab yours today.
It is free. And it is going to be awesome.
Yes. So we're breaking all of it down for you, why diets fail, how to work with your body instead of against it, and how the 4 pillars of the system that we've built out make fat loss truly sustainable. So again, you're not stuck losing the same 20 pounds over and over and over again.
I'm really excited about it.
How excited?
I am tremendously excited. I have loved we've done one. But I love the first one, and it's made me tremendously excited to provide the second one. It was a really cool experience to be able to be with everyone live. That was something that I was nervous about going into it. Being in the experience made me love it. And now I just want to do it all the time. But I realize there's a lot of preparation work on our end to get everything situated, getting all the slides, getting all the things that we want to teach on. Ready to rock and roll. And I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah. So if this episode hit home, don't just stop at listening to this episode. Literally click down below. It is going to be on February 5th at 1 p.m. EST. It is going to be free once again, and we will teach you what you need to know to finally break free from this diet cycle. And you are just capable of so much more than you think. And let's make this the last time that you feel stuck.
Let's do it.
Let's freaking do it.
Let's lose some body fat.
Boom, bop, boom, bop, bing, bop, bam. Bing, bop, boom, bop. Anyone with headphones in.
If you guys have had that song stuck in your head too, Sue and I have been going around the house just blurting out that portion of the song.
Not even the actual lyrics. We just decide anything we want in that tone.
I got a text from Sue yesterday saying, "What is that bing bop boom bot song?"
We've also had and I'm so messy.
That's really stuck in our head.
I'm so fucking clean. That's been stuck in our head too.
There's another one though.
Wait.
Oh yeah, that was before
you
that.
You don't love me like I love you.
You get so nervous to sing into these microphones.
Oh, I can't sing at all. That's why. What am I just gonna screech? That's what I sound like.
All right, have you guys signed up for the webinar yet?
Yeah. What are you waiting
Why?
for? Why are you still listening to us try and sing and get songs stuck in your head? You should be signing up for this freaking webinar.
Go sign up for the webinar.
It's free. Wow,
jinx! Go sign up for the webinar. Oh my gosh, why are you still here?
Yeah, we'll catch you on February 5th, 1 p.m., smiling and bright and ready to go, teaching you about fat loss. Catch you on the next one.
Subscribe.
Share with a friend.